Who is Paul Biya? A dictator or a democrat? He's the longest consecutively serving current non-royal national leader in the world and the oldest head of state in the world. Paul Biya, Cameroon, 1982 to 2024. He's a Cameroonian politician, the first prime minister and the second president of Cameroon since independence in 1960. Biya succeeded the first president, Ahmadou Ahidjo, in November 1982, after the surprised resignation of President Ahidjo to date. Paul Biya is the second longest ruling president in Africa, but the longest consecutively serving current non-royal national leader in the world, as well as the oldest president, or head of state in the world at age 91 years. Paul Biya was once a naturalized citizen of France when he studied in France as a student, but he later relinquished his French citizenship when he returned to Cameroon to serve in government position. Cameroon is a unitary presidential republic which Paul Biya has ruled for more than 4 decades. The incumbent president, Paul Biya, has led the country since 1982 following the resignation of the first president, Ahmadou Ahidjo. Paul Biya had served under President Ahidjo as Secretary General of the Presidency, or Chief of Staff from 1968 to 1975, and then as Prime Minister from 1975 until Ahidjo's resignation in 1982, when Biya took over as constitutional successor and was sworn in as the president on 6 November 1982, while Ahidjo, however, remained as the head of the Cameroon National Union Party, Union Nationale Camerounaise, UNC, the country's only political party at the time to which both men belonged. Former President Ahidjo resigned from the UNC party chairmanship position in August 1983, and in September, at an extraordinary party congress, Paul Biya was elected as the head of the UNC party. In January 1984, Biya organized presidential election, where he was the sole candidate in that election, and won 99.98% of the vote cast to consolidate his power. In February 1984, Ahidjo was put on trial in absentia for alleged involvement in the 1983 coup plot, along with 2 others. They were sentenced to death, but later Biya commuted their sentences to life imprisonment. Biya survived another military coup attempt on 6 April 1984. In 1985, the Cameroon National Union, CNU party, was transformed into the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM, in Bamenda, and Biya was elected as its leader. Although Biya supported democratic changes when he first took office, he reversed course after the 1984 coup attempt. However, in the face of domestic and international pressure, Paul Biya eventually yielded and allowed some democratic and constitutional reforms, and eventually accepted the introduction of multi-party politics in the early 1990s in the country under serious pressure. Though Biya and the CPDM party managed to consolidate power and remain dominant. The country organized its first multi-party elections in 1992, where Biya won re-election and the subsequent year's elections. In 2004, Biya and his government extended the presidential terms to 5 and later to 7 years. Under Biya's leadership, a new constitution of Cameroon was implemented in 1996 and later amended in April 2008, which abolished the presidential term limits and provided Biya with the option to stand in future presidential elections, which he did. The amendment also provided the president with immunity from prosecution for his actions as president after leaving office. He was re-elected in 2011 and 2018 for the 7th terms with opposition parties complaining of electoral irregularities and unsuccessfully challenging the results. President Paul Biya inherited a troubled economy, hit by a drop in global commodity prices in the 1980s, and further hampered by corruption and economic mismanagement. He accepted the International Monetary Fund, IMF, Structural Adjustment Program in 1987 to reform and revamp the economy, but despite the efforts, the country slammed into a severe economic recession. Corruption remained prevalent, hindering the country's development, and in 2006, President Biya established an anti-corruption commission by presidential decree, or fiat, to fight corruption. Though the commission achieved some successes, corruption remained a prevalent problem in the country as of today. BIA's economic policies focused on economic liberalization, decentralization, privatization, and maintaining stability in a country known for its linguistic and regional diversity. However, critics argue that his administration has faced challenges related to corruption, human rights abuses, and economic inequality. Although BIA made some efforts to open up the political environment, his regime still retains clear authoritarian characteristics and has largely bucked the trend toward democracy in Africa since the 1990s. Under the Constitution of Cameroon, President Biya has both executive and legislative sweeping powers. He even has a considerable authority over the judiciary. The courts can only review a law's constitutionality at his request. The CPDM party continues to dominate the National Assembly, which does little more than approval of Biya's policies. Under President Biya's regime, Cameroon has experienced periods of economic growth and stability. The government has focused on infrastructure development such as education, healthcare, energy, roads, and other essential services. However, the effectiveness and equity of these projects have been subjects of debate. Some of the major infrastructure projects include Birnia Warak, hydropower dams, the Kribi gas-fired power plant, the Yassa thermal power plant, the Limbe oil shipyard. He has invested a lot in the energy sector for industrialization. In the transport sector, the construction of road infrastructure such as the second bridge over River Wouri, the Kribi and Limbe, deep seaports, major and inland roads, etc. Others include schools, hospitals, and housing projects, as well as the launching of Khmer Co., the National Air Transport Company. On democracy, critics often point to concerns about the state of democracy in Cameroon under Biya's leadership. The political landscape has been dominated by the Cameroon People's Democratic ruling party, leading to questions about the vibrancy of political pluralism. President Biya's administration has seen both achievements and challenges. On the positive side, some credit him with maintaining relative stability in a region where political transitions can be turbulent. However, challenges include economic disparities between the rich and the poor, political corruption, and human rights abuses. Opposition parties and activists have often accused the government of suppressing dissent opinions, limiting political pluralism, and restricting press freedom. In April 2017, a Cameroonian journalist working for Radio France Internationale, Ahmed Abba, was sentenced to 10 years imprisonment by a military tribunal for failing to report acts of terrorism. The judgment was widely criticized by human rights groups, including Amnesty International. Also on 7 November 2018, another Cameroonian journalist, Mimi Mefo, was arrested after reporting on social media that the Cameroonian military was behind the murder of an American missionary in the country, Charles Truman, in October of that year, but was released and the charges were dropped on 12th of November after her arrest was condemned by both local and international media. President Biya describes his foreign policy as a diplomacy of development, cooperation without frontiers, and open door. Diplomacy consisting of both bilateral and multilateral cooperations. He believes in solving diplomatic disputes with dialogues and arbitration. President Biya has successfully arbitrated the decades-old dispute of ownership of the Bakassi Peninsular border between Nigeria and Cameroon at the International Court of Justice in 2002, where the ICJ ruled in favor of Cameroon, but Nigeria contested the decision, saying that the ruling was based on colonial maps from 1913, and that the court had not taken into account the opinion of the people living on the land. But in June 2006, both countries, Nigeria and Cameroon, signed an agreement known as the Green Tree Agreement, ending the decades-old border dispute and set procedures for Nigeria's withdrawal from the Bakassi Peninsula and handover authority and ownership of the peninsula to Cameroon, which was a victory for Biya. Also, another major difficulty facing Paul Biya's government is the state of Ambazonia, a political entity proclaimed by Anglophone Cameroon who are seeking independence from the Republic of Cameroon as a result of alleged marginalization of the Bia's government. The Ambazonians have accused the government of Cameroon of crime against humanity and genocides. The ongoing violence has led to widespread human rights abuses by both sides, including indiscriminate killing of civilians, torture, rape, and gender-based crimes, and unjustified detentions and kidnappings. In January 2017, the Bia's government ordered a suspension of internet services in the northwest and southwest provinces, or the Ambazonia region, which drew a lot of criticism of the government and increased opposition, and eventually led to the resumption of services in late April. Bia's presidency has been marked by both continuity and controversy. Though Bia came to power in a constitutional manner, he has faced criticism for his long tenure in office, allegations of electoral irregularities, and concerns about the country's democratic institutions. Bia's regime has been associated with a more centralized and authoritarian form of governance. Throughout his presidency, one source of concern, as well as criticism, has been his limited presence in Cameroon. President Bia is known for his many overseas travels, in particular to France and Switzerland, and, when in Cameroon, he has tended not to appear in public very often. Bia makes relatively few public appearances, and is sometimes characterized as aloof. In 2009, his holiday in France allegedly cost $40,000 per day spent on 43 hotel rooms, which many criticizers saw as a waste. Another concern, one that has become more pressing, is Bia and his long-serving minister's age, such that there is no clear path and room for the younger generation to gain experience and prepare for the eventuality of a post-Bia era or government. Bia's administration also draws criticisms from the international observers and commentators. In 2006, David Walachinsky, an American popular historian and television commentator, wrote a book entitled Tyrants, the World's 20 Worst Living Dictators, and ranked Paul Bia together with 3 other leaders in sub-Saharan Africa: Robert Mugabe of Zimbabwe, former president and deceased; Teodoro Obiang Nguema Mbasogo of Equatorial Guinea, current president; and King Mswati of Swaziland, now Eswatini, as dictators. In 2009, Bia was ranked 19th in Parade magazine's top 20 list of the world's worst dictators. The Cameroon's President Paul Bia, who celebrated his 90th birthday anniversary last February 2023, is Africa's second-longest-serving national leader and the oldest president in the world, and currently at age 91. And yet many voices within his ruling Democratic Rally of the Cameroonian People Party, RDPC, have already called on him to vie in the upcoming 2025 presidential election for the 8th term of 7-year in office. However, Bia himself has not said anything yet about his political future or succession plan. However, his administration has faced criticism for alleged human rights abuses, with concerns raised about political repression and limited freedom of the press and corruption in government. President Paul Bia's impact on Cameroon is multifaceted, with both praise and criticism. His leadership has undeniably shaped the nation, fostered economic development while grappled with challenges related to human rights abuses, long tenure in office, political freedoms, and marginalization of the English-speaking Cameroonians known as Ambazonians in his government. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe to our channel. Bye.